Hi, and welcome to the channel. So I've been watching a lot of YouTube lately, and I've noticed the watches people wear on my favorite channels. There's one person in particular who stands out for unexpected reasons. Let's begin. Oh boy, I didn't expect to be making a video about someone on the All In podcast. But Chamath Palihapitiya has been wearing some interesting timepieces. After several episodes of the All In podcast, I noticed more and more watches in his collection. He's definitely a watch guy. But the headline here isn't Billionaire has a watch collection. It's Chamath's developing personal taste. The headline here is about an evolving collection over time. A journey all watch collectors hope to go on. Let me explain. All collectors like similar watches early on, and some of us get the opportunity to purchase a Daytona, a Royal Oak, an RM. Some even choose a Hublot. Now, these choices aren't available to all of us. But early on, we all gravitate towards the icons. Maybe this follows a cycle we all go on. The newbie watch, the icons, experiments, and then settling on your collection. Chamath's collection today doesn't feature the icons as much. He could choose the most opulent watches. Recently, we've seen the most expensive Patek for sale. It seems Chamath doesn't make those choices. His watch collecting started with the icons, but he has ended up in a very different place today. All right, so let's take a look at his watches. I won't include the prices because that's not the conversation. The conversation is about the choices. First up, the Hublot. We all make shocking choices as our first dive into expensive watches. I'm not sure what this particular reference is, but let's move on. The double balanced open worked AP in rose gold. In his early years, he definitely made some nouveau riche choices. This is definitely an FU watch, but it's a nice one. Why have a Royal Oak in steel when you could have one open worked in rose gold? Then another sports watch toy. The RM035 is a super lightweight watch, with later models featuring a rotor which adjusts to two positions depending on high or low intensity movement. Impressive to say the least. Here we have another sports classic. There's not much more that can be said about the Daytona Panda. Of course he has one. And it rounds off Chamath's early phase of his watch collecting. These particular watches were spotted in interviews leading up to 2020. All sports watches, all iconic models. Then something changed. Maybe he fell into the habit over the last few years. See, billionaires are just like us. Kind of. From 2021 onwards, I noticed exclusively on his podcast a new collection of watches. I didn't catch all of his watches, but I did my best to catch most of them. This new collection all followed a theme, which didn't include sports watches, with the exception of maybe one precious metal sports watch. So let's begin with that. Definitely an upgrade if that's possible. A rose gold panda on an Oyster Flex bracelet, but this is the exact point where things take a turn. This Patek Philippe Calatrava is hard to miss. The pilot travel time in rose gold is a big watch. It's 42mm, but the pushers are on the opposite side of the crown and it stands proud, making the watch appear larger than it actually is. Next, the Datograph Perpetual by A. Lange & Son in platinum. Another impressive timepiece and a watch of contradictions. It's complex, but the design is well balanced. It's heavy on complications, but it's small in size. It's very advanced, but it comes across very classic. This would be my grail. And pre-owned, the platinum model is less than a Nautilus. Out of the two, I know which one I would choose. Well, this is the one I would choose. This next watch is one I had a hard time with. I'm not familiar with this model, and it's the first of two really obscure Patek models I had trouble IDing. This is the Patek 5159G. This watch is obscure for a few reasons. First, there's the retrograde date. Then the position of the day, month, and the leap year counter. This all comes together on a watch face thanks to the radial condensed Roman numerals. Another awesome classic reference, if that's your style. Now for the second obscure Patek. So I'm not familiar with Patek Philippe, but this model in particular was hard to pin down. Released in 2014, this 175th year anniversary watch can measure pulsations, speed, and more. There's a lot of superlatives I could use to describe this watch, but the important thing is this choice is part of a really classical collection. So, what would trump a complicated Patek? How about a simple three-hander, which is even more complex? The Richard Lange Pour le Mérite in white gold. This simple looking watch uses a fusee and chain to increase accuracy. A movement made with over 600 parts. This is an impressive watch by any measure, but the fact that it appears as a simple three-hander makes it more, well, actually I've run out of superlatives for this watch. What can you say? But what a way to cap off an amazing collection. So unless there are new watches in his collection, this is pretty much a definitive guide of Chamath Palihapitiya's watch collection. So how would I rate it? My rating would be simply surprising. So what's the headline? Billionaire buys expensive watches? As I said before, it's about the journey all of us as watch collectors go on. Our interest in the icons, our interest in the obscure, our interest to stay with the icons, or our interest in developing our own personal tastes. What I really like here is Chamath has chosen timepieces based on a style he's settled on over the years. These are mainly classical watches, round cases, leather straps. If you don't include the sports watches from his early years, they all have symmetrical watch faces. There's no asymmetry references here like the Lange one. There are complications, interesting watch faces. His watches stick to these preferences. Making choices based on your personal preferences is something we can all learn from. I definitely can. Do I really want a Daytona? Am I really interested in a Nautilus? My point is, digging deep into your personal preferences can help you make choices that's right for you. Size, shape, design. This may mean looking around, experimenting, making mistakes, and looking past the usual references. So how will you know when you're making choices based on your preferences and possibly not trying to impress others? I'm still finding that out. But maybe it's when you enjoy your watches on a personal level and don't seek approval for the choices you make.